Okay, let's get started. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. Welcome to the webinar. This is a joint presentation from AcctTwo and Sage Intacct on the Sage Intacct Interactive Custom Report Writer. Next screen, please. My name is Glenn Strack. I lead the reporting and analytics practice at AcctTwo, and I am truly very, very excited about the new interactive custom report writer and the value that it can bring to your business or nonprofit. We're able to do things that we've never been able to do inside of Sage Intacct with this new product. Reporting is my whole focus at AcctTwo, and this new module will only improve the reporting capabilities for all Sage Intacct customers. Next screen, please. Thank you. At AcctTwo, we understand that success on the Sage Intacct platform can mean going beyond the core product and even the add-on modules. That's why we've created a set of offerings around which we call Sage Intacct Plus. The concept of going beyond really breaks down into these three groups. First of all, Sage Intacct Plus Consulting, which includes business success reviews made up of a 21-point inspection of your Sage Intacct as configured against best practices, add-on module implementations, and lastly, customization services. The second Sage Intacct Plus offering is Sage Intacct Plus Technical Services, where our team of developers can make changes to your core application, including user interface and user experience changes, workflow automation, custom integrations with other systems, and custom platform applications to meet the needs of your business or organization. And these will be fully integrated with Sage Intacct. The last Sage Intacct Plus offering that I'd like you to know about is one that I'm very excited about, which is Sage Intacct Plus Reporting and Analytics, which provides consulting and implementation services around the following: the interactive custom report writer, the topic of today's webinar, budgeting and planning with Sage Intacct's budgeting and planning tool, as well as other budgeting tools like Marta Solutions, better visibility for your management teams or your boards, various reporting packages that we offer, and lastly, and very importantly, training around reporting and dashboards. So let's get started. I have some housekeeping items to point out. First of all, type any questions that you have in the questions box to submit to our panelists. We'll try to get to all your questions during the course of the webinar. If we do not get to your question, we'll make sure to follow up after the webinar. And lastly, we'll send a recording of the webinar as well as a PDF of the slide deck and follow-up emails after this event. And now, I would like to introduce our main presenter, Linda Kenyon, who is a Principal Solution Consultant with Sage Intacct. We really, really appreciate Linda taking the time to talk to us about the new Interactive Custom Report Writer. I'm going to let Linda tell us about her background. Take it away, Linda.
Thank you so much, Glenn. And thank you, AcctTwo, for the opportunity to work with your team to bring this webinar to your customers. And for those of you attending today, good morning, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. As Glenn said, I am a Sage Intacct person. I used to be called an Intactor. Now I guess I could be called a Sage Intactor. I've been with Sage Intacct for almost 9 years now. And as Glenn said, my focus today is to bring you more information and get you interested and excited about our new reporting tool. So let's go ahead and review our agenda for today. The first part of my presentation is going to be introducing you to this report writer. Now, some of you who have been on Sage Intacct for some time have heard about this report writer. I know you have, because we've been talking about it for a long time. However, I want to bring you up to date on where we are, when it was released, some of the highlights and features around this tool. And then we're going to move into a solution presentation. So I want to share with you the end result. I'm not intending for this to be a training session today. I want you to get a look and feel for the tool. I also want to show you some examples and talk to you about some things that you can do with this report writing tool that we were not able to do before. And I think that's the key button here that we want to hit on today. And then after that, along the way, we've had lots of questions asked, and so we've put together an FAQ, a frequently asked question document, and I've captured most of those. I'll cover some of them during the presentation of the software, so we'll go through those FAQs fairly quickly, and then we've got time for Q&A and some next steps. So first of all, as I said, most of you know that we've been talking about another report writer for some time, and it was released at the end of last year in R4, November-December timeframe of 2018. And important for you also to know, the reason that it took longer for this tool to be released is because we went through a very extensive beta program. Some of you on the call today may have been part of that beta program. And betas are important because that's how we learn what's missing, what maybe doesn't work quite the way we expected it to. Sometimes we have to go back and do some more work to get it ready for prime time, as I like to say. So we stayed in beta and did not release this until we felt it was ready for our customers. Now, some of you may have gone through some classes or set in on some sessions last year at Advantage because we had a pretty big splash of a rollout. And again, that was preceding coming out in R4. So fast forward, let's talk a little bit about why we have this tool. So first of all, Glenn makes some great points in that, we're moving in technology today to wanting more business intelligence. We're wanting to look at our businesses in different ways. And in order to do that, of course, we need to have good core data. We need to have that dimensional data that we have no problem getting in Sage Intacct. Once we have that data, we need to have the tools in order to access it and get that information into reporting that is meaningful to us. So this is kind of a lily pad approach in my mind. We're starting out here with the report writer, and I'm going to start calling it ICRW because of the acronym Interactive Custom Report Writer, so ICRW. We start out with ICRW, and our next piece of the solution will be around data visualization. And data visualization is going to give us all of those graphs and the visual part of looking at the data. And that's in the works today. That is being worked on. And then when we get to that lily pad, the next lily pad is predictive analytics. So there is a path, there is a process, there's a plan, and we're just beginning to start to see that roll out with ICRW. Now, this tool is referred to as a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. And what that means is when you are creating reports, you're able to see and preview as you are creating and building that report, you're seeing the result as you're doing that creation. Along the way, today I'm going to cover several of these points in the presentation. Being able to do some things that we have not been able to do, like pivot tables. And that's something that we heard loud and clear. People want to do pivot tables. They're used to doing that in Excel. Being able to have drag and drop. So the ease of use, the ease of building these reports, being able to click on a field, a column, and move that over, just drag it over and then resequence it, reposition it. Being able to do more complex or more in-depth calculations at the column level. So some of the things that we wanted to do in the custom report writer, we weren't able to do because we could not do that level of calculation. And then, of course, along the way, once we have that information, we always want to do something else with it. We want to export it out to a PDF or Excel or PowerPoint. And you'll see that today when we get into the solution. So as I go through these few slides, I'm just kind of laying the groundwork for when we go into the software itself. Couple of things just to re-emphasize here. See it as you build it. So that's, clearly an advantage, dragging and dropping, the calculations, the pivot tables, exporting to Excel, and adding to your menus and dashboards. All things that you would expect out of this level of a report writing tool. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is if you are currently using the custom report writer, the one that has the wizard. You know that today when you open it up to create a new report, you see that there are some data libraries that you can choose from. And there's a little bit of a difference of terminology here. So I want to kind of do a compare and contrast. We have what we call reporting areas today. So reporting areas, think of those as data libraries. The same thing that you would have over in the custom, we're calling them reporting areas. And then underneath those reporting areas, we have folders. And then within those folders, we've got attributes or columns. So just a little bit different terminology to learn and grasp when you go to this other report writer. But the attributes, those are your fields, like account and account label. The measures are your dollar amount. So that's your money part of it. And then when you look at all of this, as you're clicking, you start out on the right-hand side with a blank slate. So there's nothing over there. As you choose the columns that you want, you drag and drop them, and they just drop right onto this blank plate over here. And then you can move them around and change them. And then the next step, of course, would be to go into a specific column, set filters, set calculations. So it's easy to relate if you kind of grasp that terminology. Now, as I go through the next few slides, I'm going to talk to you about the functionality, and then I'm going to show you the result of that functionality. So talking about adding column filters, think about a report where you want to have some filters where you're looking at maybe just the top 5 or the bottom 5 of a list of information that you put some rules around. So here what we're saying is we can filter this down to say just look at the top X, that could be 5, it could be 10, whatever number that is, or the bottom based on a measure. And then we can also put the rule in that says only look at data that's greater than or less than a particular value. So what happens is when you look at a report that I've created, you see I've got a report that shows me the top 5 unpaid invoices. So being able to set those column filters with the rules gets you this type of reporting. The next feature is prompting for a user input. Now, this is nothing new. We do this all the time. If you think about the reports that we run that are standard reports in Sage Intacct, they're always asking us for what customers do you want, what vendors do you want an individual, do you want a range? So you can do the same thing here. You can add a column prompt, and I'm adding a column prompt here for customer name. So when I execute the report to run, it's going to give me this box on the right, and it's going to say pick the customers that you want. And in this case, I've made it a drop-down, so I can select the value, and I can select more than one. And here's the result of that filtering and that prompting. So now I've said, here's my report, and I'm only getting first alerts and second waves. Easy stuff, things that we would expect to be there. So now we look at some calculations. And this is a report that is basically adding a calculation to the column. However, it's also going to add and create a new column for us. So let me explain the logic in the box here. I've asked it to go to the AP bill and look at when the AP bill was paid. So when paid. And then I've asked it to look at the AP bill and pick up when the bill was due. So when due. And subtract the two. So I'm comparing when it was due versus when it was paid. And when I do that, it creates another column for me. So if you look at the report, that end column, days to pay, was created by making that calculation. So an easy report to create, but very helpful, because now we have another metric that we can work with and that we can use in any of our decision processes. So this is a calculation on a column. So now let's talk about a function in a calculation. So for those of you who maybe have some experience with report writing, you may be used to the term Boolean Logic. Boolean Logic is when you create a statement that includes if, then, else statements. So when someone says, oh, that's Boolean Logic, let me walk through this and you'll hear the if, then, else. So in this logic box, what I've said is, when the AP payment type is equal to a credit card, I want you to display the description of that credit card. Otherwise, or else, if it's the bank account, I want you to display the bank name. So if the payment type is equal to credit card, else, bank account, bank name. So if, then, else type statement is what Boolean logic is. And we can now do that. So now what you see is the result that says the card was American Express. It's a credit card, so we looked at the payment method. And now we're seeing American Express in the descriptor. Same thing is true with the bank. We told it if it was a bank, we want to see the bank name. So this is something that, again, we could not do in the custom report writer. Now, drilling down to the source document. This is another one of those things that we all have done and we expect, and you can still do that here in ICRW. What you would want to do is to define this when you define the report. You'll see this drill down in a few minutes on an AP report. So you can drill down to the source. In this case, it would drill down to the sales invoice. So this is nothing new. We do this all the time. You're doing it from your dashboard. You're doing it on any report. You're drilling down to the source transaction. So you'll be able to do that here with ICRW as well. The last one here is pivot tables and time hierarchies. And you're going to see basically this report pretty much duplicated in my demonstration in just a few minutes. And I picked Houston specifically for AcctTwo because I know that's where a lot of folks are based out of for AcctTwo. So this is a hometown report for you guys. And what you see here is the ability to take advantage of our dimensions. So we're going to use customers, we're going to use locations, we're going to use departments, and those are standard dimensions to us in Sage Intacct. And then we're going to look at the data, and we're going to look at that data expanded over time. Now, I'm going to show you basically this report. I'm going to be drilling into those years. I'm going to show you more data than what I show you here on the slide. I'll also show you how you can change the report at runtime. So that's important too. And again, this is something that we are not able to do with the custom report writer today. All right, so I think we're ready to go and take a look at the solution. So let's do that. So a couple things before we get into running some reports here. First of all, when you get ready to subscribe to ICRW, you'll subscribe no different than any other application. You'll go to company, you'll go to subscriptions. The configuration is simple. There's only one question there, and it asks you if you want to upload your logo. And that's because you can put your logo on the reports. Other than that, that's really all you have to do. Once you get it turned on, then the next thing that you want to be aware of is there is a report library. So to get here, all I did was just come to my report center and I clicked on the Interactive Custom Report Writer. So now I've got that. It's one of my favorites. This report library is just like the report library that you have in the financial report writer, where you've got those standard reports that you can use. So you can use these straight up, or you can use these to copy and create your own version. Today, you can see there's a handful. Every quarter, we're going to be adding to this list, to this library, so you'll be getting more and more reports. There's a SWAT team that's been put together. We've come up with about 70 reports as suggestions. So over the course of the next few releases, you'll be seeing more and more reports in the report library. So I'm just trying to get to my little done there. Okay, there we go. My panel was almost covering up, so I apologize for that. So now let's come back and let's start looking at some of these report examples. So the first one we're going to look at is an AP bill analysis with subtotals. So let's go ahead and run that report. And what you're going to see here is pretty much a standard report that you might want to create. You can see the different columns here. These are fields of information as I've built this report out. One of the things that I mentioned was being able to drill down. So here I can drill down into the vendor invoice. So drilling down into the vendor invoice, if you're using Procure to Pay, so if you're using the purchasing application, here's the AP bill. And again, using purchasing, you would get to that familiar history tab. So all that same drill down capability right down to the source transaction is available. And again, you'd want to define the report to have that drill down when you create it. So you want to make sure and do that. The next report that we want to look at is that same report, but we're going to change it. So let's go make a copy of it. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a save as. I need to move this little guy down. There we go. So let's do a save as. Let's not destroy our good report. We'll just put AcctTwo at the front of it. And we're saving this into our folder. And now we have that same report just with a different name. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a field to this report, and then we're going to make some changes as to the filtering. So we're going to come over here to the bill detail, and we've got attributes, dimensions, measures, and related objects. We're going to choose dimensions. We're going to choose the channel dimension. And then let's open this up so we can see it better. And let's choose the channel ID. Now, it's going to place that field at the end of the report. So here's the channel ID over here on the right-hand side. What I can do is I can take this and I can drag it any place I want. So I just drag it over into the middle of this report. Another way that I can do that is I can just click on this column, and I can move this column to the left or to the right. So moving it to the left, to the right, I can also make it a prompt or a section. So let's make it a prompt. It moves it up here to the top, and then that allows me to change my filtering here. I could also come in here and move this column and make it a section. So I'm changing the report on the fly just by filtering with that data. So that's how easy it is for you to add a field, move a field around, and change the filtering. In addition to that, you could also come over here and add other columns to this report, and you could put in calculations. All right, so let's look at our second report. So our second report is going to be our AP vendor aging report. So let's go ahead and run this report. And I would imagine that everybody on the call today is using the standard AP aging report. And if you recall, that report allows you to filter it either in summary or detail. What I'm going to show you here is a combination of those two reports together. So I call it the split screen report. And this one also has a prompt. It's going to prompt me for my currency. And what you're going to see is both the summary and the detail of the aging on the same view. So on the left-hand side, you see a summary, and on the right-hand side, you see the detail. And the reason that this can happen is because we are linking two reports together with a shared key field, and that key field is vendor. So what happens is when I click on RWS Commercial, it changes the right-hand side and brings up the detail of this summary. Now, if I wanted to, I could set up this report so that this was a drill down. I did not, but I could set it up that way when I define the report. Now, a couple of other things that I'll show you while we have this report up is exporting. Remember, I said that you still have that capability to export, so you've got exporting out to PDFs and Excel and PowerPoint. If we export this out to PDF and then take a look at it, here's the presentation of that PDF. So you've got your report there. The other thing that I've done is I've also added this to a dashboard, and I've added it to my AP menu. So if I come back over here, I have a dashboard set up for my AP manager, and I've put that report right here on the dashboard. So you can tell the difference in the coloring and the formatting. You can see clearly this is a report that we just looked at from ICRW. I also put this report in AP as one of my custom reports. This is helpful because what this means is I don't need to go to ICRW to run this report. I can run this right from my AP reports menu. So just an ease of use for the folks in your organization. And of course, these other things up here, you can email this report, you can add it to the dashboard. That's how I got it to the dashboard. So very easy for you to get that report over to your dashboard. All right. So now let's come back to our lister and let's take a look at our pivot table report. So this report is the one that is going to allow you to adjust the X and Y axis at runtime. And again, pivot tables are something that we can't do today with the custom report writer. So my prompt now is asking me for a date. So let me key in my date, which I'm working in the year 2018 here. So this is basically the report that you saw on the slide. I've got Boston here and Dallas. I've got Entity 300, New York and San Francisco. So I've got departments, I've got locations, and I've got customers. So I'm using my dimensional data to set up this pivot table. Once I look at this, I can come in and I can open up the data so that I can see everything in 2018. And then as I'm stepping through, I'm going to go right down to the 4 quarters. From the quarters, I'm going to go into the month. And from the month, I'm going to go into the specific day. So this is really, again, something that we're not able to do with the custom report writer, something that you're probably doing in Excel today. So now let's come back and let's look at how we can change this up. So at runtime, I could come up here and I could change this department, and I could make it a prompt. So now, just with changing that prompt, I now can flip between administrative and sales. I could come back and move this column to a section. So now I've got it divided up between admin and sales. And this is really going to allow me to change the data at runtime and change that X and Y axis. The other thing I can do is I can come in and I can include a specific column. So let's just say I wanted to add that channel in. I could add that column in, and then once I have it here, I can then take it and drag it over, and now I've got a change to the way the report looks again. So very easy for me to make any of those changes right at runtime. So again, it's really about slicing and dicing the data and being able to do it right in front of you, not needing to create different reports, because now I've got this data right here in front of me, and I can drill into it, I can change it, I can reposition it. So that's the pivot table. Now there's one other example that I want to share with you today, and it's a little bit about all of the reporting, not just ICRW. For most organizations or companies, you're utilizing dashboards to see how your business is tracking. In my environment, I'm managing a company that buys and sells alarm equipment. So I've set up a dimensional insight dashboard. And there's 2 reasons that I want to share this with you. One, I want to show you how you can use the dimensional data and the dimensional groups and structures to really analyze what's going on in your business. The second reason is I want to show you how combining financial reports and ICRW reports together gives you a more complete and detailed view of how your business is tracking. So across the top in those performance cards, this dashboard's all about revenue, by the way. So in those performance cards, if I just look at that, it looks like I'm doing pretty well. I've got my revenue segregated into product lines. So surveillance, entry, accessories. I've got a gross margin percentage. In my business, anything between 30 and 40 is a good number. So by all indications, I'm doing great. And I'm comparing this to a previous year, and it all looks really good. Now, to help facilitate that, I've set up a report here that I call Revenue Trend by Dimension. And this is really dimensions on steroids, because I've dimensionalized my data very deep here. I've segregated my customers. I've created different channels. I've got different product lines. I've got regions. I've got reps. I've got entities. So I can look at this report. I can drill into the data. I can see how I'm performing. And then I've also used conditional highlighting to highlight some areas that maybe I need to do some further research on. This report was created with the Financial Report Writer. In addition to that, I've created 3 other reports with ICRW. So let me share these reports with you so that you can see the rest of the story. Because it's kind of interesting sometimes when we look at the highest level and we don't dig any further, we don't get the true picture. So this is a sales profitability report, again, created with ICRW, where I've pulled all this information together and I can see by item, by customer, how the margin is tracking and the margin percentage. So this still, this still looks pretty good, but I'd really like to understand more about, at a rep level, how are my reps performing? So let's go look at sales by rep, another report that I created with ICRW. And I've got several reps. I'm going to focus in on one particular rep today. It's 1009. Her name is Lisa Hoffman, by the way. So this is a report now that I could share with my reps that says, this is what the picture looks like for your channel, by your customer type, and I've got a monthly bucketed report. And this is going to show me the peaks and valleys. So this is, if I look here in May for this particular security system and their surveillance product line, I can see that I've got a real uptick here. Maybe that's a promotional thing. Maybe there was something that we did to promote that. Maybe there's something that our customer, Platinum Alarm Systems, did to promote that specific item. And that's the reason that the sales were up. So that all looks pretty good. But let's take one more view here. And then the last view is item profitability. And item profitability is where the rest of the story is. Because now what we're going to see is that some of the items are really not performing as well as we think they are. When we look at our item profitability by product line, by item, we can now see that in some of those categories, some items are not really performing. And overall, it looks like we're doing great. But when we look at the detail, we can see that there's a problem. So now we can go back and we can analyze and determine what's going on with this item. Are we not selling it for a high enough price? Are we discounting it too much? What's going on? And we've got the same problem here with one of our accessory items as well. So the reason I wanted to show you this is because today I really believe that we don't use a lot of the data that we have because we're not able to report at the level that maybe we would like to. And ICRW is a perfect way for us to be able to manage that. So let's go ahead and come back to our PowerPoint and look at some of our questions that have already been asked. So these were questions that came out of beta and have also been tracked over the course of the last 2 quarters. So how do you get access to the Custom Report Writer? We're going to talk about the 2 different ways in just a moment that you can subscribe to this tool, because there are 2 different ways. When you get it, again, very easy to configure. Answer that one configuration question. Don't forget about the report library. One question that was important and asked very quickly was, will the Custom Report Writer stay around or is it going away? The Custom Report Writer, the one that you have today with the wizard, that's the way I describe it to differentiate it, is not going away. It will be here for the foreseeable future, which means that you can continue to build reports there. However, I'm going to caution you, those reports that you build in the Custom Report Writer will not automatically be converted over to ICRW. So moving to ICRW is going to get you all of that more extensive capability and functionality So just remember that you're still going to have the custom report writer. However, there's not an integrated path for those reports to move over. Is it easy to implement? Yes, it is. And in fact, the team at AcctTwo will be able to help you. Glenn and team will be able to help you with that. There's also a lot of recorded assets and training material for the tool. As far as roles and permissions, it works all the same as it did in the custom, or as it does in the custom report writer. So you can have permissions on the reports. You can certainly have reports locked down so that only people that need to get to those reports can. If you compare this report writer to the custom report writer, we believe that once you get acclimated to ICRW, you'll be able to create reports faster here than what you do in the custom report writer. And I've already answered this question about being able to integrate or move over those reports, and that is not possible. As far as new features, this is really all about being able to do more advanced calculations, being able to do pivot tables. Is there a list of the system fields? There is. When you create a new report, you can look at the reporting area, and we have detailed out what's in each reporting area. So if you struggled or got frustrated with trying to figure out where the data was and which data library it resided, we've fixed that in ICRW, so now you can see that and you know what's in that reporting table. Will you be able to show periods and columns based on a transaction date? Yes, you will. And then all of the can-Is, they're all yes. We saw some of them today. Add something to a menu. Add it as a memorized report. Add it to a dashboard. We saw that. Schedule it and email it. Yes, you can do that. Export it to Excel. Yes, you can do that. The formulas do not come over when you do that export, but you absolutely can export to Excel. And you can include custom fields. So if you're adding custom fields, you know those show up in the custom report writer. They also show up in ICRW. Now, as promised, I want to cover this different type of buyer here, because there's two different types of buyers for ICRW. So let's talk about the one on the left first. In your organization or business, you may have one or two people or a handful of people that are what you would deem to be report savvy. They have used report writers before. You know, maybe they're a Glenn where this is kind of what they focused on and they're really good at it. And we would consider them a power user. So there's someone in your organization that would need to be a report builder. They would be building out the reports based on sitting down and defining with you what they want the reports to look like. In other organizations, so let's move to the right side, in other organizations, they may not have this power user. They may not have these folks that are really report savvy folks. And this is where AcctTwo comes in. AcctTwo can become your report builder, again, based on sitting down with them and defining and designing what you need and how you want it to look. And then you become the consumer. So you have the ability to still gain the value of ICRW without being the power user that's building the reports. AcctTwo steps in, becomes your builder, and you become the consumer. So it's really a great win, if you will, because you still get to get the benefits of having the reporting and getting the reporting that you need, and you can do that as a consumer. Now, there's a different price point for the builder versus the consumer. And that's something that when you get that call from your AcctTwo representative, you want to make sure and take that call so that you can ask any questions about these different types of buyers or users and ask any other questions as well. So want to make sure that you know if you don't have those power users, you still can utilize the functionality and get the value of ICRW. So Glenn, I'm going to stop, and I know you've been monitoring the chat for us and gathering some questions along the way. I'm going to open it up so that we can get some of those questions answered and do our next steps.
Linda, thank you. All I got to do is say, wow. It's pretty amazing that we now can do case statements, which are in essence if-then-else statements that we've always had to do inside of Excel, we can now do inside of Intacct, along with pivot tables and complex formulas, and it's just exciting. So thank you, Linda.
Oh, you're welcome.
Go ahead.
You're so welcome. I'm glad you have the excitement about it, because you're one of those power users, Glenn. So I'm expecting big things from you.
I love this stuff. I really do. I really do. Even though I love Excel, this is going to make me say goodbye to Excel. All right. We do have a few questions that have come up during the webinar, and I'd like to try to get to them. Again, if we don't get to your question, we will make sure to follow up after the webinar. So first of all, we have a question that says, is this subscription, oops, I'm sorry, that's not the one I wanted. I was looking at this. Is ICRW, is there a way to build reports using dimensions from more than one reporting area, for example, AR and order entry? And the answer is yes, if there's links between the two. So while Linda was talking, I went and took a look, and I started with a typical AR report I have, which is AR invoices, paid, and outstanding. And I was able to do a search. I just searched on date, and it came up with maybe 100 different fields from order entry transactions, including the project that's assigned, et cetera, and all kinds of notes and dates, and anything to do with the transaction or entry is available from that AR table or AR reporting area, which is pretty impressive.
Yep.
All right. Next question. Are my custom fields I've created available in the interactive custom report writer? And the answer is yes. And I've already used a bunch of mine where I've had custom fields in a particular module and brought them into the interactive custom report writer and was able to filter by them and display them, etc. Next question, let me see. Are there, and I think Linda's already answered this, are there any pre-built reports, or do I start from zero? There are several pre-built reports, so there are several pre-built reports they can immediately use and copy to create your own version. And I've already used some of the pre-built reports and copied them, made my own version, put my own spin on them, my own look and feel, my own color. And it's kind of neat because for one of the things, and Intacct reporting has always been great, but one of the things now we can do with this interactive custom report writer is we can really customize the look and the feel and the output of our reports. And if you're a nonprofit, you can make them board ready. You know, you can give them that color and presentation that you want. But as Linda said, there'll be new reports coming out. And I did see a question on this, will I automatically have access to those new reports? And yes, if you have the interactive custom report writer, there is that reports library, and every quarter when new reports are added, you automatically get access to those reports.
So Glenn, I just want to jump in here real quick and
yes,
add something
please.
I just want to add something that I didn't include in the deck today. However, I just want to say that just like with every other application that we release, so whether it's, Sage Intacct budgeting and planning, or fixed assets, or collections, any of those other SKUs, if you will, that we have as solutions, we are continually updating and enhancing those. As a matter of fact, R3 just came out, and in R3, there were several things that were enhanced and added to ICRW. So for those of you who are maybe interested in knowing what got changed, what got added, if you're curious about that, it's in the release notes. So you can go and read the release notes and check that out. But just so you know, we're not done. We are not done. We are continuing, and we still want your feedback. If you're using ICRW, we want your feedback because, again, we're continuing to make changes.
Linda, I'm going to follow up on that. I'm going to give one example of a release that I have been using a lot and incorporating already in my ICRW reports, and that is, well, let me take a step back. In the custom report writer, yes, you had access to the dimensions. In the interactive custom report writer, we now also have access to filter reports based on dimension groups, which is huge.
Yes. I'm glad you mentioned that because that is one of the things that just came out. And so it was something that we had on the list, and it made the R3 release. So we're all very happy about that.
I'm very happy about it. Another question. Let me see. Yes. All right. Can the user change the report at runtime to hide or show columns, move columns around, or change the layout if it's a pivot table? The answer is, if you run the report in HTML, the answer is definitely yes. And I believe you demonstrated that, Linda, where
I did. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So if you're
what I did, Glenn, was I included a column, and I could have just as easily gone back and excluded it back out. And that's the beauty of it, is that at runtime, I can change the way that report looks entirely. So I can include columns, I can exclude columns, I can change the filtering and the prompts. I can do all of that.
Okay, thank you. And then another question, can the user drill down the detail? So Linda showed this also, and the answer is yes. And you have the control over what you want the user to drill down on, which fields they drill down on, which fields they don't drill down on. In fact, it's interesting that you can actually add conditional formatting on that drill down. So you can say they can drill down if it's these accounts, but not on, or these expense accounts, but not in the payroll account, which is always a big deal for a lot of reports, is how can I let people drill down on just certain GL accounts. So you do have that ability to have drill down and conditional drill down also. One of the things that I've created for one of my users is a conditional column where if the amount was above a certain amount of a different column, I would turn that column, or I would put good, and then I have a little arrow pointing up next to the word good. And if it was in another range, I'd have a yellow icon and say average, etc. So this whole conditional formatting, whether it's on the drill down or whether it's in a column, is extremely powerful, and you can do things that you might never have imagined inside of Sage Intacct before. So there's a lot of great functionality.
So Glenn, I kind of refer to that as quick business insight. So what you're describing is a way for me as a user to really be more efficient in how I invest my time. So instead of me digging in reports and pushing things out into Excel and having to manipulate, now I'm able to take a report like you just talked about creating. I could push that to my dashboard, and I could have that right in front of me. and not have to go anywhere else but right to my dashboard, and I have access to that information immediately.
That is great. It absolutely is great. I have another question about formatting and what you can format. And in reality, you can format just about everything about that report. So as Linda showed, you can have different versions of the same report or different views of the same report with different filtering on each one. You can have more than one heading. You can color almost any field or any column or any heading. You can change the colors and fonts in different places. You can control almost everything about the look and the feel of a given report. And I know one of the challenges I've seen in the past is just having a board ready or a management ready looking report that you could customize. Well, now we have that ability with this interactive custom report writer. Okay, I see we're running out of time. What we're going to do, though, is we will follow up after to answer all the rest of the questions, because there are some more out there. I encourage everyone to go to, as you see on the screen, www.AcctTwo.com/ICRW for more information and to start a conversation about whether taking advantage of this tool makes sense for your organization. From that page, you can either contact your customer support manager, or if you want, you can submit a short form and we'll have the right person reach out to you. I really appreciate everyone joining us today. We had a huge crowd. There's a lot of interest out there. Linda, thank you again for this. We really appreciate it. And I hope everyone else just has a great rest of your week.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity. Bye, everyone.